the TV to show us that we're on, and there it went. Good evening and welcome to the December 14th, 2017 Conservation Commission meeting. I will call the meeting to order at 7:03. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I'd like to deviate from the agenda slightly and say a thank you to the Newmarket Little Elves for our cards and ornaments that were left up here in front for those of us who are volunteering in the town. We have an additional nice Christmassy ornament to hang on our trees. So thank you to the Newmarket Little Elves. Your efforts are acknowledged and appreciated. Oh, I like that idea. We can show them off. And our cards are all individual.
Yes, they are.
Beautiful.
Very creative.
I like them. So other than that, I think we can jump back to the agenda. So Sue, could you do the roll call for us, please? Thank you. Present.
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 And I received a message from Mary Ann Hannigan saying she would be unable to make it tonight, so she is excused. So we have all of our members. Mary Ann is a member. Okay, yeah, so then I will appoint Julia as a voting member for the meeting this evening. Next up is public comments, and we have one member of the public here. Dale, would you like to comment, or do you want to wait until we get to the discussion on Heron Point stuff? Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you. So next item is approval of minutes. So Sue sent out the minutes for both our meeting on November 9th and the non-public session of the meeting on November 9th. Do we have any motions related to those minutes? I think we should do it as two, since it is 2 minutes.
2017.
I'll second that motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Non-public minutes? Do you have a motion? Do you have a second? Raise your hand. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Next item is the treasurer's report. Andrew, you sent that out?
Yes. Per Jeff's request. Is that helpful?
Yes.
My limited understanding of this. We put in an invoice for renewing our membership to the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions, and that was approved and paid out, $363. And I'm also seeing interest and payroll for Sue, and I received a balance sheet about land use changes for the past year. $8,500 from, where is that, Honeycomb Way, which I believe is by the golf course. 8,500. 38 and 36, 2 addresses, each $4,250. And that all besides interest.
Anyone have any questions, comments, concerns?
I have a hard copy of the invoice from Ellen if you're looking for that.
I was up there today, and I submitted that today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
didn't
just,
know if,
I
made a
printed
hard
that out and submitted it. She was looking for your signature, but she was willing to accept the email, which you authorized the payment, so I forwarded that to her, and she's all set.
Okay, thank
Yep,
you.
we're good.
Thank you, Andrea.
Mm-hmm, you're welcome. That was for 1,500. Oh. 274,000, 100,000. Oh my gosh. This is like a math test. Okay, 274,000, $100,000, roughly. Right, Jeff? Thank you. It's a long day. Right.
Thank you.
I thought it was too. Isn't it June? Ends in June?
Okay.
I think that's 2018.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, that's confusing me too.
Not too impressive for the phone
Committee and subcommittee reports. Town council, Casey?
Yeah, the town council last met on Wednesday, December 6th, so last week. I guess the big focal point of recent times has been the budget, so we kind of approved budget to send out for the voters. And in terms of other items, the ones that kind of pertain, I guess, more to us would be there's a resolution in the first reading regarding getting an analysis of the total nitrogen control plan, looking to raise the levels, I got the numbers right here, from 3, sorry, I'll jump right to it.
And that's for the wastewater treatment plant?
Correct. And the idea is to have, do an analysis of it with the intention that right now it's currently, our limit is 3 milligrams per liter. And the idea was that a potential future permit would raise that up as high as 8 milligrams per liter, probably falling somewhere in the middle. But that's in the first reading right now. The other thing that we looked at the last meeting, we got some information about kind of the dam proposals in terms of what directions could go with that in the future, because it's, and they gave us several different options with layouts for different types of gates, as well as different types of kind of walls that would prevent people from getting too close to the edge. So we kind of just looked at with further discussions needing to occur sometime in the early spring, I guess, regarding that. And that is it actually for the town council stuff.
Okay.
Can I ask you a quick question, Kate? I didn't see the dam discussions. Is it for rebuild or like for fixing it?
Yeah, for fixing it. And the idea is that there's some structural issues. There's some leakage currently going on, so that would rectify all those situations. Obviously there's some aesthetics that need to be improved as well, but really the structure of the dam would really need to be kind of shored up long term.
Can you talk about the motivator for increasing the nitrogen output at the sewage treatment plant?
I think it's to provide flexibility. I think the assumption from what we kind of discussed was that 3 is tough to meet, but we're pretty close to it anyway. So it's just to give us a little bit of flexibility moving forward, and long term too, as it takes on increased flows. So I think that's kind of the intention behind it. But I can certainly check in to get.
Do you
more
know what the
specific.
state guideline is for the?
I do not know.
How
no.
much they're allowed to put out? I'm just thinking about more nitrogen in Great Bay. Doesn't seem good at all.
Right, so I think this gets, I don't have the specific details, but right, Newmarket made an agreement with the EPA. We were one of the first communities to do that. And I don't know what our current output, well, I shouldn't say it that way. Our output in years past was substantially higher than these values. And so the renovations and updates that we've been doing to the wastewater treatment plant have been in an effort to bring us down substantially. And I want to say it was on the order of magnitude, so a factor of 10 or more.
Yeah.
And then I know in the initial agreement that we had with EPA, there was discussion of sort of where should our end point be, and that was something that was going to be reviewed and sort of discussed and negotiated based on using best practices to get us as low as we reasonably can, but also having some level of flexibility to have increases that may occur, I think is probably the way to say it. So I don't remember the specifics of it, but there was a desire to negotiate some flexibility because we were starting, because we had made such a substantial reduction. The perspective was having some small increase from the substantial reduction was still a substantial improvement from where we were.
And even the wording of it, this is the kind of the initial analysis, but the wording is that to give a range of between 3 and 8. So I don't think we're trying to necessarily go the full 8, but what's reasonable? Because right now it's a pretty strict, hard limit of 3.
Did we set that on ourselves, the 3, in conjunction with the EPA?
Yes, yeah. And that's why this is kind of like the renegotiation of what's manageable. So I guess the concern there is that 3 is very tough and it's pretty hard to meet. So if we had flexibility between 3 and 8 is kind of how it's worded here. But again, this is the initial analysis to bring in Wright Pierce to do an analysis of it.
What's the current design supposed to get to?
I'm not sure.
I want to say 3.
So that's 3, but at current town capacity, or current flow coming out of town and into the facility. I see. So they're like in 10 years there'll be so many more buildings and we might not be able to keep it at 3.
I think that's the intention behind it. There's some of the older reports on here too, but I think that's the implication, that as we grow, it would be almost impossible to maintain that cap of 3. So giving us some flexibility where it may not be as high as 8, but certainly needs to be higher.
So they're asking the EPA for that then?
For some flexibility, yeah.
They can be, okay. So the EPA could
Say
say
no.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with the analysis, at least gives some discussion points or some evidence of what's
No, yeah,
realistic.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Just saying it's a negotiating point.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And I think, again, my understanding was, because we were the first community to, in essence, cut a deal with the EPA, there was an agreement that, we're going to try to do the absolute best we can, but we want to be able to come back and say, hey, this is where we are, this is what we foresee, how do we achieve something that's reasonable?
Yeah, kind of remember that. That was a while ago.
It was, yeah.
And the dates I have here are 2013, saying that as of April 1st, 2013, we were routinely exceeding 8 milligrams per liter. So since then, it's dropped. But I guess that was the last number that I see on here.
There's been a lot of changes there since 2013.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great, thank you, Casey.
Should I do environment?
Well, I was gonna say nothing from the planning board, so yeah, if you
Oh.
wanna do the environment, sure.
Okay, the Energy and Environment Advisory Committee met December 5th. I think were you there, Casey? You don't think you
No,
were there?
no.
So it was our second meeting, and I'll just initially say that it was unbelievably well attended. There were, say, 10 to 15 members of the public present.
Wow.
To
My gosh.
talk to us about kind of what we're up to. Lots of interest, and so, like I said before, we kind of went two directions: compost and solar were kind of two things we were looking into. And being the second meeting, a lot didn't happen in the interim. We kind of bounced around some of those ideas some more. Tony Weinstein had contacted a few town administrators to kind of get their thoughts on how solar worked in their towns. Didn't hear back, and then kind of had set up some meetings with some other people. Was trying to get some help from Steve Fournier to get some kind of conversation started. So that's where that was, and she also had reached out to Mr. Fox and hadn't heard back by the time of our meeting. So we didn't have a lot of new stuff come in based on results from the first meeting yet. So we had a much broader discussion with the group of people that had come in about composting, and there was a lot of positive feedback for some sort of composting within the town, kind of either town promoted or town run or some sort of method. So that discussion is going to keep going. I'm personally going to try to contact another composting business up in Maine just to get some thoughts on how to approach it at a town level. And we're also working on a mission statement, and we've heard that Durham and Lee have a few somewhat similar committees and that have very well written and thought out mission statements that we can kind of maybe tap into and maybe even reach out to a few of the members for some thoughts. Another thing, Tony talked about performance contracting. I guess there's going to be an energy audit of town facilities, and they're going to come back. I don't know the name of the firm that's they were thinking of hiring. I think there was a proposal maybe that was brought to the town council for doing the audit. I don't know if it passed or not. And so they would have ideas. I guess this building specifically is very
Inefficient.
or heating and lighting and all sorts of ways. So that's one place where it can have a big impact in town. I guess is here in town hall itself. One other thought that we kind of talked about was potential swap shop maybe at the
Oh my god, I love that idea.
at the town dump.
I know, I go there all the time.
We don't know. That's another thing. I'm gonna reach out to Steve Fournier and Rick Molaski and kind of see what they think, because it would be at a town facility. Some sort of oversight would have to happen. Not saying that committee would be the ones that would ultimately run it, but kind of getting some feelers out, seeing if it's something that the town is interested in hosting.
I think what they do in Durham requires quite a bit of
Volunteers.
man
Yeah.
hours.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So.
And they have a building there and everything.
Exactly.
So.
So we talked a little bit about that sort of stuff, and facility. One idea was that committee wouldn't run it. There would have to be something else that came out of the Energy Environment Committee, like the swap shop committee or group or whatever, people who recruited volunteers and maintained it. But we have to see if the town's interested. But everyone the public support was pretty much unanimous, the people that were there. It's one other thought is that perhaps a doodle poll or monkey survey or something like that out to the town, just to get feelers out for how townspeople would view some sort of composting, townwide. So.
Would that be like another thing to pick up on trash day type situation?
Well, that's kind of how the discussion went. There are different ways it can happen, and different towns have done this. Like I guess Rye had just a spot where people would take their stuff and dump it in a pile, and Mr. Fox would pick it up every so often. There can be curbside pickup. dumpster or someplace, for people to bring it and then be collected. It was definitely not for the town.
Yeah, it sounds like a pile would be gross quick.
Yeah, he comes
Yeah.
through our neighborhood and does curbside pickup.
Right, exactly. And so one of the thoughts was maybe, still the discussions have to happen with the different companies that might do it. There hasn't been a formal, let's do an RFP and get prices. It's kind of, is there a community discount? Is there a way for people to not, someone's like, geez, if I pay them $15 and it's only gonna save me one trash bag a month, that's
Right.
$3.50, and, I'm gonna lose money or something, so there's kind of some different things to kind of talk about and see what might come of it.
Do you think you guys would take over the composting bin thing that we did? We sort of fell
Well,
off a little bit with that since you're doing composting.
Well, we did discuss that, and I brought up the fact why we don't have them for sale anymore, which was that we have we can't keep them at private
At Fred's house anymore.
Yeah.
people's houses, and how, if it was at DPW, the accesses,
Mhm.
weekdays, and it just, we haven't decided as a commission that it made a heck of a lot of sense. And so I kind of just explained that to them, and they kind of got it.
Mhm.
They kind of understood. So, so it was more or less like, how can we
It's
get
not-
the community involved?
Mhm.
And there were some folks who were like, geez, I don't know, no one's going to like doing this. And I don't think the goal is to get the entire town of Newmarket right now to start a curbside, composting program. It's like you get a certain percentage of the town involved, and it's better than we were at before.
Mhm.
You can
The
reduce
bills.
the bills for,
Mhm.
like we talked about last month, but reduce bills for the town's waste removal because they're paying by weight, things like that.
Oh.
So you can kind of get the ball rolling, and then maybe the interest builds and who knows. The last thing we really talked about was just recycling in general, and how a lot of our recycling that the town sends in does get rejected, and then the town ends up having to pay a fine on it, basically, because improper or things that are not recyclable
Right.
are being added to recycling bins. I'm not 100% convinced that some of the items brought up are not recyclable, though, because I looked on Casella's website, and they're recyclable things, and it's not
Like what?
It's not straightforward. Like, it says milk cartons are, but it doesn't show a picture of a milk carton with a screw-on spout. You know what I mean? It just says milk cartons, and other liquid cartons are, and it shows like a picture of like a soy milk box. It's like, wow, I never thought aseptic or soy milk type containers were
I didn't think they were.
recyclable, and I don't think they are either.
I don't think so.
And so, I think like a call.
I've-
I was thinking of calling them.
I've actually called them, and they were very limited on the stuff that they would take. So I said, "What about plastic bags?" They said, "No, it clogs
definitely
up."
not plastic.
But like the supermarket ones, if you ball them all together, because I sometimes do that, they said, "No, it clogs up their thing. Straws clog up their
Yeah,
thing."
straws, and those are two things. That are
Yeah, like
very-
like lids for disposable cups. They won't.
Right.
They pretty much want bottles and cans and paper.
Right,
And that's really it.
And definitely no greasy pizza box.
Yeah,
and
pizza boxes they don't
there's-
like.
There's a list of.
But people don't know that really.
But that's that's cardboard. Why
But it's
isn't
got
it-
the grease on it, and it messes
Oh,
up
it's
their
the
process.
grease
Yeah.
Oh.
And it's not like they say, oh, we can't take this pizza box.
Yeah, they
say,
throw
"We
the
can't take
whole
this
conveyor
bale."
belt. Yeah.
This
Oh,
big
really?
thing.
Yeah, they have to
Can't be-
trash the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because it goes through a thing and stuff percolates out as it's like the material. And then if something's wrong, then they got to throw out that whole like
The whole
batch. Yeah, they can't just they do the best to pick through, but it's so mechanized now.
How much is this costing Newmarket?
I have no idea.
The budget, I can't remember his name, the fellow on the environment. There's a fellow on the committee that's on the budget committee, and he had the numbers. It's actually, I think it's about even the cost that the town pays to recycle and remove solid waste. I think it was like 180,000 a piece, more or less. Or it
Like
was
the fees are 180? Like our fees for,
year.
For submitting bad recyclables,
Just
we're
for,
paying
just for,
180.
that's how much it costs for our recycling program. We don't get a check for $5
Right,
as a
yeah,
town. We
right.
pay like a significant amount.
Huh,
I
but
don't know
they
if those
make
numbers
money
are
off the
quite-
raw materials, I would think.
I don't know if those numbers are exact, but I think that,
Little
I
bit.
thought it was something around there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But it was about the same number for our trash and our recycling.
So would the idea be you could reduce the 180,000 if you were not submitting things that were sent back? Is
If
that
our
what you're-
recycling was cleaner
Cleaner.
and was so.
Yeah, like if you throw out a cereal box with a bag in it, they probably have to throw out all that cardboard.
And so the weekly town newsletter has a list in it
Yeah.
of things that
Yeah.
you can recycle. And it's not 100% clear, and so that's why I went to Casella's thing, and they have a flyer in there that doesn't quite match what we have in our town newsletter, and I was like, so maybe I should call them, so that there's, so I think one of the things that the committee is looking into is a more concise recycling flyer, like a better way to present it, and not sure if it's gonna go around or not, but, so.
Good idea.
So if the recycling was cleaner, the cost for recycling each year should be less, and if we composted some, people might pay less in money for trash bags and some money towards composting instead, and then the town's bill on that sort of waste would go down a little bit too. Plus, we'd be composting and removing a bunch of materials that don't need to be in a landfill from a landfill. Anyhow, so that committee doesn't meet again, I don't think, until late January, like January 23rd, I believe. Do you know? Do you happen to have that email?
I think it's
in
the end
front
of the month. It's like, right, isn't it like Monday or Tuesday, end of the month?
I think it's the
Um,
23rd.
Yeah.
I could actually look it up too. I didn't know if you had the email open.
No.
But it's yeah, that was it was interesting to have that large of a crowd. I was impressed. But,
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, definitely.
One thing,
Considering they're not televised either, I don't think so.
Hmm.
Somebody they must have just seen it.
one thing we're talking about at my job is what runoff. Stormwater runoff is huge. Impacts the worst thing for the Lamprey River. So I don't know if you can want to talk about like the biggest contributor to that is failing septic systems, personal septic systems. So it's sort of a touchy area because you don't want to seem too regulatory talking to people about upgrading their septic. But if they have an old septic tank, then it's contributing a significant amount of pollution into the Lamprey.
Yeah, we talked
So-
about that a while ago when we had folks from UNH Daily.
Michelle Daly, yeah.
She came in and talked about nitrogen
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
testing in streams and
Yeah.
wetlands.
Yeah.
And septics, I think I remember bringing up, well, the state should have maybe there should be some sort of fund to help.
There's a little bit of that available, but I
Maybe
think
failing
people
septic
are
systems.
are scared because then they know the cost is huge and it seems regulatory and they don't want to have that presence in their yard, I guess. But that's the biggest problem.
But I thought they mentioned that at their first meeting. Stormwater runoff.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
it's part of what we're doing with the stormwater update is looking at
Yeah.
all of that, because the estimate is that that will continue to grow.
Uh-huh.
So we need to prepare and update our standards and to reflect all of the anticipated changes that we'll see in stormwater runoff.
We had so many conversations about that on the commission.
Yeah, the big issue.
Fertilizer and
I know.
fertilizer in front lawns,
Yeah.
failing septic systems, and what you
Yeah.
can and can't regulate.
Uh-huh.
Can't ban fertilizer from
But-
town and things like
Right,
that.
which is why the wastewater treatment plant is trying to get to a super low value,
Yeah.
because it's a point source, and it's something that's already regulated. And
Mhm.
therefore, if you're trying to reduce the overall nitrogen load into Great Bay, that is something that you can address and try to control, and
Mhm.
therefore, it gets highly restricted. Because so many of these other things are either
Right, you
non-point
can't.
sources, or there is no real regulatory
Mhm.
constraint or mechanism, yeah, in order to control it. Okay. All right, thanks, Jeff.
Sure.
Any other committees or subcommittee reports that I missed? Okay, next up is the chairman's report. First thing on here is Serve with Liberty. So Jeff, as a previous chair and someone who had previously registered for Serve with Liberty, got an email saying, hey, Serve with Liberty's coming up. If you would like to register your activity with Serve with Liberty.
In like April, right?
We can we can get in early on the registration process, and they also had, what was it, a potential to have $1,000, I think it was, provided to help facilitate your project.
That was the email that came last year, probably, that I was like, it's November. Why am I hearing about this now?
Yeah.
And it was too late. Almost. Patrick saved us.
Almost. Well, so now we know, and so,
That's right.
yes, we should, we don't have to specify an area. I think we could just specify that we want to do a similar project to what we did this year, and then as we get closer, we can nail down exactly
we can
where
fill
our.
in details.
Yeah, fill in the details, exactly.
I completely agree. So, assuming people on the commission are in favor, I think last year's Serve with Liberty was a great success. So I would certainly say, or I should say this year's Serve with Liberty was a great success. I would say, I think it would be great to pursue it again for next year. And so with that in mind, we might as well register our opportunity for the Liberty employees as soon as possible, so that we have an opportunity to win a little bit extra money for the process as well. It sounded like it was unlikely, realistic. Like, if I remember right, it was like 3 projects out of however many do
Right.
the early registration, and I imagine that there are quite a few that do the early registration, because I know that there's a lot of projects out there. So we're not likely to win, but we can't win if we don't enter.
And can you handle that right through Liberty Mutual, or should I log into that portal
so
and do it?
I didn't
that
get the
way?
email because I think you're still down as the contact.
Yeah.
So you could
I'll look at it and see,
you can
and log in.
include
and
me
whatnot.
on it if you want, if you want to send it to me, and I can, if we want to sit down and look at it together or something. But if it's pretty easy to follow and you can just sign us up, then I would do that.
Yeah, I know that when I did it before, I did have to pick a date if I remember right.
But they should give you a range. Did they give you a range of dates of when to pay?
Last year you did it, and, on that email?
Yeah. It's usually the first couple
Probably.
weeks in May, I want to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
last week in April, first week in May.
Right, we had to pick a,
Yeah.
so should I pick a Saturday or a Sunday then?
No, you.
It's gotta- it's
it's
gotta be
it's
a
a
work
it's
day.
yeah.
Nobody will sign up.
Last 3 years I took a day out of work and I don't even remember. Yeah.
Yeah, so we want to pick a Friday if we can.
That's what we did
right?
last year.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody loves Friday.
Friday or a Monday, those are your
Those are more
guaranteed
popular.
days for lots of people. What did we do a Monday this year? Is that what we did?
I think we
I
did a
thought it
Friday.
was.
Yeah, I think
We
a
did a
Friday.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
we
April-
had no problem filling up.
April 30th to May 11th. $6,000 grants.
Wow.
Six.
Oh,
the
six,
quantity of
comma,
six.
$1,000.
Yeah.
Six
Okay.
$1,000 grants.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry, what were those dates again? April?
30th.
April 30th to May 11th.
Okay.
And we must, pre-registers are by January 5th to be eligible.
Well,
So the Friday.
yeah.
So pick one of those
Yeah,
Fridays.
pick one of those Fridays.
Either one's fine
Yeah, I agree.
with me.
I'll probably try for the April one.
April 27th?
April, the day 3 days before.
Yeah, that one won't work.
Yeah, that's not 14 days. I see how they're doing it, 12 days. I got it.
Yeah.
I'm slow. So the first one, yeah, I think. Serve with Liberty. The only reason I say that is because it's less likely to be black flies. A little
Sounds
earlier.
good. Less bugs is better.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jeff, you'll register us for that?
I will. I could probably push it right now.
Okay, perfect. So I think that takes care of Serve with Liberty for us.
Thanks, Jeff.
Wow, nice.
Sure.
Indeed. So, in other things that we received in the mail, we received the Southeast Land Trust newsletter. I'm gonna pass that around. People can look at it as desired. They do a nice job on our newsletter.
Okay, I have to ask a couple more questions, because
Shoot.
I'm quickly looking at the form, and they want a maximum number of volunteers.
100.
50. Pick a nice one.
Well, yeah, we wanted to think of a number that we can actually manage.
Yeah, because it will fill up on
Last
Friday.
year was a lot for
Yeah.
the area that we were
Yeah,
working. It was like,
we-
wow,
it-
there's a lot of people.
It took all of us to really lead it, and
Yeah.
so
How many were there? 8?
how many did we have last year? I think we had like about 15 or 20 last
don't
year. I
even
want to say.
know.
I
You
would
mean
say
in
10,
this past
15.
May or
Yeah,
this
this past
April?
May.
What is
I
it? I thought
keep
it was
saying
like
last
maybe
year, but I
8,
mean
not
Yeah,
including
yeah,
us.
yeah.
2017.
I don't know.
I thought it was like 8, not including us, maybe. Commission members. So
Right,
it was
but
like-
Patrick counts as a Liberty.
Yeah, they
No,
count
no, but
us.
I mean 8 other people.
Yeah, yeah, I
So
think
I'm
that's
just thinking
right.
of total numbers.
So we might have had
10.
10. If you're not counting
Yeah.
Julie and I,
Yeah,
we
so
would have
10.
counted.
Yeah.
We're both employees. So, I don't know.
You
20?
recommended
Do you think
last
20 is
year.
too much?
No, because we can always subdivide. We can do 2 places.
As long as we get
Hmm.
enough members that can take a day out of work and
Yeah.
go to it and
And help.
help out.
Last year, you recommended that this year, you'd like to get 2 working groups, one at Wigan and one at Castle South. That was your recommendation after last year.
Let's say 20 people.
20.
And then do 10 at
Aim
Locations,
high.
10 at each location.
Okay.
Let's go for it.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get 20.
Good. Go for it.
More shovels from DPW.
Yep.
Get more equipment.
You
We'll
only
have a
had
plan
6.
ahead and
Literally.
identify the work.
Well, yeah, Southeast Land Trust has a tool exchange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got a
opportunities, so
million
they got a bunch
weed
of
wrenches. They're like
Yeah,
60 or
nice.
something.
Picks and all kinds of
Yep.
stuff, so.
And a planter thing if you wanted to
Yeah.
re.
We can
plant
figure it
stuff.
out. So I'll keep going, Jeff, and if you have any more questions, you can.
I think that's really it.
Okay, so the other thing that we got in the mail, which is of interest, is the town of Newmarket received a letter from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services related to the wetlands file for the New Road and Young Lane project, so the drainage stuff over there. And essentially, the letter says that the standard dredge and fill application has been determined that additional information is needed to complete the application. So a shoreline permit is required. I'm gonna do the short version. So a shoreline permit is required. Additional plans are required. And in particular, that need to show the upland tidal buffer zone and the highest observable tide line on the plans. And we also need to have an abutter setback issue addressed. So the project will work within 20 feet of an abutting property line not owned by the town. And so we need to have written concurrence related to the project from the affected abutter. So this is a letter to the town, not to the Conservation Commission. We're just being copied on it. But the other key is, they say in bold print at the end, please be aware that in accordance with RSA 482-A:3, failure to provide a single and complete response within 60 days will result in a denial of your application. This information needs to be in by January 7th, 2018, or your permit will be denied. So that's the timeline. So I imagine we'll see some more information about that in the future. So I don't think there's any actionable item for us out of that, but we're being informed of it. So that's all I have for the chairman's report. So next up is old and new business. And if people on the commission don't mind, I'd like to rearrange the items here a little bit so that we do Heron Point Sanctuary first, since Dale has been patiently waiting through the minutia of the rest of our meeting, and I know that's why he's here. So as long as there's no objection from the other committee members, we'll do that, and then we'll revert back and cycle back around. So let's talk about the Heron Point Sanctuary. So on, as we discussed at our last meeting, on November 27th, the Heron Point Estates Cooperative Board of Directors was having a meeting. They were kind enough to invite us to come. I sent out a message to the commission members saying, that people could join if they wanted. Anne, you came to the meeting with me. Thank you. It was nice to have an additional set of ears and eyes there. The meeting I thought was cordial and productive, I would say. I wrote up notes to the meeting. Thankfully, I politely requested that the co-op board of directors give me a week to write up the notes because my life has been crazy busy lately. They were kind enough to do that, and so I wrote up the notes and sent them out to the meeting attendees and the board of directors and asked for their input for comments, suggestions, corrections, etc. They got those back to me, and then I believe I sent that out to everyone on the commission. Is that correct? Did I send it out? And so I think really the bottom line is the Heron Point Estates Cooperative Board of Directors is interested. What was the exact words we had here? Conservation Commission and the Heron Point Estates Cooperative are interested in working to find a suitable resolution to having the Heron Point Sanctuary Gate unlocked and open. We had kind of discussed two different things, so the notes have two different things there. We had talked about dusk to dawn as one possibility, and we had also talked about specific times, a given time in the AM to a given time in the PM. And so those are both included in the notes as they currently exist. And the other key is when the driveway is suitable for safe access. So for example, in winter or this time of year, if you get a lot of snow, the driveway down to the parking area definitely does have some slope to it. It is a dirt driveway. Some people, including myself, do not have very good tires on their vehicle right now. And so there's the potential for people to get stuck in there. And that has happened a number of times. And so that requires heavier equipment to go in there to help pull them out. And it also basically, some of the residents in the area, they have people knocking on their door and asking, hey, can I borrow a snow shovel? Because I drove down here and I got myself stuck and I can't get out. And so poor planning on people's part, and then driving in there results in potential burden to some of the residents in the area. So in an effort to minimize that, and just for overall safety, realistically, it makes sense for, in times when the road is not in good condition due to snow conditions or heavy moisture in the spring, if it's a mud, et cetera, et cetera. The desire was to not have the gate open in those times. And I think that's.
And the park would still be open. It would not be open to
vehicular
vehicles
traffic,
come, yeah.
right, yes. And I fully understand those concerns, and I think they're reasonable. I don't have any concerns with that. The other thing that was brought up that I think is important is that there is co-op infrastructure, notably water and sewer lines and electric power that run underneath the driveway that goes down to access the parking area. So that raises a concern of, heavy equipment potentially causing damage to the infrastructure that's there. And that is addressed, at least to some extent, in the easement language associated with the access driveway. So it's acknowledged that that infrastructure is there, and care needs to be taken not to damage that infrastructure. So when I forwarded these notes to the commission members, I also included the board of directors of the Heron Point Co-op, or Heron Point Estates Co-op. I'm sorry, I keep missing the word estates, which they were kind enough to add to my notes as well. So I think the next step is for me to start a conversation with Steve Fournier and see what we can do about, continuing to try and move this forward. Because from my perspective, there was a desire to continue to see this move forward and come to a resolution. The Board of Co-op members stated that they're not happy with having the gate closed and locked all the time either. So I think there's an opening. We need to figure out a way to make it so that it works for the town and for the residents of the Heron Point Estates Co-op. Dale, you were at the meeting. Do you have anything to add? And if so, if you could come up to the microphone and state your name and residence.
Dale Jones. I live in Heron Point Estates, and I guess I've been kind of pretty active in trying to get some resolution to that. So my primary reason coming tonight was twofold. I'm very interested in what the Conservation Committee does, so it's been very educating to hear what's going on with the meeting. But in addition to just kind of what I was hoping to hear maybe tonight was some discussion within the commission on some of the thoughts that have been put out with the solutions, specifically the electronic gate. I guess the only thing I would add to what I've already contributed to that is I've been down there quite a bit this week, because I just live 400 feet away or whatever. And as I was addressing some of the concerns we heard at that meeting on the 27th about the easement, is if that gate were to have been moved back down pretty maybe even closer to where the junction and the trail is, that's flat ground, and it's actually got a little bit of an elevation before it pitches over into the driveway. That if that gate were actually moved back, and I haven't heard it's brought up anywhere, so I just, maybe it has, but if the gate was moved back closer to that rock, that divider, even if it was permanently closed or closed for the winter, it would do two things. It would provide parking, because the big issue is now for a lot of people that are using the park, and I've had a number of conversations. I talk to, with people every time they walk by with their dogs and stuff, and people have been inconvenienced having to walk, not being able to drive down there. And the minute it was closed, it created some concern within the park, the cooperative, and all of a sudden this flush of no parking signs popped up. So I was just thinking, if that gate were moved back, even that, you could almost do that right away, then it would afford, 60, 80 feet where cars could pull over the side, and the concern about the being towed and stuff because it's an elevation. So anyways, just as I'm walking down, I'm thinking, is this possibly something else that we could throw into the mix as a potential resolution? And I'm not sure if, I'm guessing you've been copied on it, but I've shared with Drew, I did some research on electronic gates, and I came up with a bid from a company, and it's an electronic, it's a time gate. It has security issues where somebody does get trapped behind it, because one of the concerns was with the gate, if it closed at dusk or at some time, people get trapped down there, and then they're knocking on doors saying, hey, that type of thing. But this particular gate system has safety where you can go up and manually open the gate to go out, and then it shuts again. The other thing is it has an access, so if you're an emergency vehicle, say somebody's down there and they get hurt, or there's some activity, illegal activity, at least they get down there, there's a frequency that they can open the gate on their own. So that's, I don't know how much of that has been talked about, but that's, and that seemed to be after the meeting, what seemed to be a direction that might make some sense as an
Right.
electronic gate.
Right.
What are the
Yeah.
oh, sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
And it's solar powered, by the way.
yeah, so I know one of the town's concerns is the ability to have someone available to open and close the gate 7 days a week, 365 days a year, either in either scenario of the dusk to dawn or the specific times. That's very hard / impossible to guarantee. So I think Dale's right. Some sort of automated timed gate, I think, is a potential solution. There may be some additional ones, but that looks like a potential solution, I would say.
Yeah.
What did you find for, rangers as far as cost goes?
Well, I only went to one because I was just curious.
Yeah.
So I just went out there to see what was on, and there are some DIY systems that you can put in that are literally hundreds of dollars, less than $1,000. But I went a little bit further to see, and I think the company is LiftMaster,
Yeah.
which also does garage door
Yeah.
openers and that type of
They
thing.
did mine.
And I got the proposal out of Massachusetts. I don't have the details with me. But they gave me a pretty thorough, and it's one of those, it comes in sections, so that if you want to eliminate, if you can install it, you can take a chunk out. If you don't want this particular feature, take it out, type of thing. And I haven't gone any further than that because I submitted that to the town council and it got pretty much crushed, initially. So, and when I say crushed, I don't mean, it was too much money, and so there wasn't really any motivation for me to go out or incentive to go out and get more bids or anything. Plus, I'm not really in the position to be doing that
Yeah.
for anybody, so.
was
But I just found
wondering.
that
Yeah.
as a potential guide. But the more I think about that, moving the gate as an interim solution, I don't, I just would be curious to put that out there and see what.
Well, I did bring that up at the meeting on the
Yeah.
27th, yeah.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, it was not welcome.
Right,
That's right.
it was met with.
Wasn't
Wasn't.
the main issue though people being down there late at night and being loud? I mean, if you move the gate back, they're still gonna do all that stuff. They're just not gonna get stuck behind a gate
It's a
now.
little hard for me because I'm separating the two things.
Mhm.
There's negative stuff that goes on down there,
Right.
but I think there's other resources that have to address that situation,
Okay, I
Okay.
see.
i.e. the police.
Right.
And those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
And the gate actually, they don't have access, even the police don't have access down there, so there's no, at least in the past, the police would get on there and could, cruise around the parking lot.
Right.
And come back up, now they don't even go
Uh-huh.
near it, so.
They don't have a key.
I'm trying to separate
Police
those
do.
two bundles of issues. What I'm mainly doing is, from my personal perspective, is there are a lot of people that enjoy that park in addition to me.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to a large number of people, women pushing baby carriages, not now, of course, but they were pushing baby carriages down, and they were walking in from town, and Bay
Yeah,
Road,
that's terrible.
that section
Yeah,
is not
Bay
a
Road is
good
bad.
place to be,
Yeah.
for anybody to walk, and if you get a dog,
Right.
close the
Yeah.
road. So
Yeah.
I'm really trying to focus my energy on emphasizing the good part of that park and the benefits of it,
Mhm.
and how little use it's getting, and not little use, but the use is significantly dropped
Mhm.
because of the gate situation.
Yeah.
And, I would just point out that, the gate has been wide open for, I don't know, minimum 7 years, maybe longer than that. So the issues
Yeah.
that prevail now haven't gone away,
Mhm.
so, anyway, that's my.
I don't know, I think Dale, you and I were kind of chatting after the meeting a little bit, and I think one of the things that Dale and I had talked about is, I think this property is somewhat unique compared to some of our other conservation properties in that the parking area, because it is sort of down a driveway, the parking area is out of sight from the road. Whereas if you think about, most of our other properties, obviously Shanda Park is is front and center. There's, you can't hide anything there. But like Wigan Farm, the parking is right off of Grant Road, so it's very easy to see that there's a car parked there if it's after dusk. Back at Sliding Rock, where the boat launch is, the parking area is around a little circle area. So again, it's it's in the road. It's easy to see whether or not there's a vehicle there. And this property is unique in that if there is a vehicle down in the parking area, you can't see it from Meadow Drive. You really
Right.
do have to
Go down.
drive down there in order to see it. So it does, it's different in that regard, I think is the way to say it. So presents some challenges from that perspective.
Have the issues that they've had been completely resolved since the gate was locked?
I don't think we could say completely, but substantially.
One of the issues was people driving really fast up and down the road. And
Yeah.
The other issue was just people partying down there. So I was just curious
Yep.
Right.
if the issues that were within the park have been more or less resolved since the gate was locked.
That's a little bit challenging for me to answer because I'm kind of on the other side of the fence within the cooperative. Because I think one of the issues, there is definitely an issue within the park, the board, about just dog traffic in general on that road going down there. There's been a hue and cry about dogs defecating and stuff, and they don't, and that's been a very strong issue for them. With regard, I go back down there all the time. They talk about all the trash. I could probably fill one market basket bag with all the trash I picked up in 11 months I've been going down there. So I don't see what I'm hearing other people saying. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, I'm not witnessing that. There are two structures that have been built. There are lean-tos that cross branches, fairly significant size. And I go over and I look and there's no evidence that anything's been underneath there. And that's been one of the complaints is people go down there and are staying overnight and partying with me. So it's hard for me because I'm not witnessing the stuff I'm hearing. As far as the sound line, I'm too far away to hear about the noise back there. So, again, I just want to say that I'm focusing on what I see as a beautiful piece of property that could really be, I think it's very representative of the market. And I think people from out of town would go down there, and it's kind of ironic that the very week the sign went up pointing to the park is when they closed the gate.
That's true.
So now people are welcome, come here, but you can't get out of the building if you want. So that's my intention. That's what I continue to work for. I've got a website up, a Facebook site up on the park that people are starting to contribute to. So that's, But again, I presented all this, both to Mr. Fournier and to the board, so none of this is particularly good new news. So I'm just mainly trying to gather feedback, and that was the intent of driving that meeting on the 27th.
Yep.
Just to kind of open the.
Continue the conversation.
Yes.
Yeah. And just so the commission members know, the quote that you got, Dale, right, was on the,
Under 5,000.
yeah, I was gonna say it was
Oh.
around $5,000.
That's not bad.
Give or take. So, yeah, I mean,
That
it's
was a
not,
DIY solution, which was that we install ourselves because there's electronics involved. But
yeah, so I think, from a frame of reference point of view, an automated gate is something under $10,000, even if it's a, fully installed, blah, 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 kind of thing.
It's reasonable.
So,
Well, I was gonna say, the reason for my question was the gate the solution, or is it just a bargaining point, you know what I mean?
Right, that's why I wondered as well.
Are the people still gonna walk their dogs down the street if the gate's there or not? That was kind of my.
Still have that problem.
that's.
Is the gate the solution, or is the gate just?
You don't know which is driving which. I've only lived there a year and a half, and so I experienced about 12 months of the park being wide open. And I wasn't aware of any issue. I heard the issues, but I didn't, just as history. But then something occurred and it was legal the legal body was brought in the picture, and that's when the town clamped down on the gate. They weren't going to engage in any litigation around that. And so they kind of, the stonewall stuff, so. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Is it still open for me to listen?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Public meeting, yeah. It's broadcast.
We're on TV.
Thursday, every month.
Tune in.
Yeah, just a comment on, you're talking about this.
Dale, if you don't mind, just so
Sorry.
that
We'll
the
throw
gets
this out.
caught on the
We'll talk about
microphone.
Recycling.
Yeah.
I lived for a time in New Hampton,
Yeah.
right up near Bristol,
Yeah.
and they have staff that recycles. So you bring your recycling in, and they actually separate it there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Northampton
Yeah.
has that as
Oh,
well.
that's a
So
good
that way they
idea.
can-
Make
They
sure.
sort through and they'll take your
Uh-huh.
ball, and they know it doesn't,
Yeah.
Yep.
like that, so it seemed to be pretty effective.
Yeah, one of our, just so you know, that's a great idea. They did that, I believe they did that where my dad lives in Fitzwilliam as well. And one of the things that we've discussed about anything that we've talked about is we can't add town employees.
Ah.
You
Is that we-
cannot.
Yeah,
You say you
we
cannot
cannot add any employees to the town payroll. That was kind of one of our things that we've definitely discussed, yeah. Because we, even talking about composting, and geez, we'd need someone to kind of turn it if the town didn't want to pay an outside person to do it, and we just wanted to have like a concrete slab poured or something done out at the transfer station. And, yeah, because then somebody would have to turn it. You know, or
Yeah, I
something
think
would
that's a
have
bad
to-
idea.
Discussion when you've got $180,000 expense.
I know.
For improper.
I know.
It makes you wonder if it's even worth it to recycle at all.
That's not the cost only because of
No,
improper.
I'm just
but
saying, you get that
It might only be
money.
1 or
I know.
2% of that, I don't
You
know.
cut back
yeah.
in the cost and
Yeah.
you could feed 2 people. It's-
Right.
yeah, It's just.
Yeah, that's 3 or 4 employees.
Interesting. Yeah.
That does open the door for a little bit of a swap shop too, because the Northampton, they have a recycling center, and they don't do this too formally, but when they get something a little bit fancy and they just sort of set it to the side, you can kind of look at it. It's real
Yeah.
informal, but you've got to go there. They're open, I think, 2 days a week for recycling. It's sort of fun. I used to like going there.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, yeah, so circling back to the cost, I know when I was on the budget committee, which I haven't been on for a number of years now, on a per ton basis, the recycling actually costs slightly more than the waste stream disposal that was going into the landfill.
Nice.
Which I remember being surprised when I saw that. I was like, what? And it's largely because there is not a significant market for the recycled or recyclable materials. You know, the market is highly variable. And because single stream recycling requires a lot of sorting, which either means a lot of hands or some
Machines,
pretty
yeah.
fancy machinery to be able to separate out.
So, has the town thought about just doing separate recycling, and not do single stream?
We
do
did
not
that a
know.
while ago.
A lot of towns
not
do
know.
that. You know,
Yep.
you have your paper, people do it
Yeah.
themselves.
Yep.
I thought I saw a documentary on something on TV where prisoners do it. They have prisoners separate the trash from the recyclables for free. Well, you know, except for the cost of having them supervised.
Yep. And transport.
I think they make a day wage a little bit.
Oh, do they?
I think so. Very minimal.
But they want to do it because they want to get out of their cells.
Right.
Part of the cost for recycling too is the value of recyclables is nil. It's
low,
very,
yeah.
very
Why
low
is
again.
that? Do you know?
And actually, there's, I don't know if you saw, like you say, circulated in the environment community, that China may soon reject recyclables from
They're raw
the United
materials.
States. Because it's not clean enough.
Yeah.
It's too dirty, more or less.
Hmm.
It's not just here's a thing of plastics. I mean, who knows what's real and not, but they talk about toxic waste and various undesirables mixed amongst the recyclables that
Ugh.
they don't want, and it's bad. So,
We're doing it wrong. Our whole system's wrong, I think.
more or less, our whole system's wrong.
Yeah.
And we did discuss this whole big system being wrong thing at the environment at our last meeting, and how, or yeah, I think it was at the last meeting, pretty in-depth on how some countries have it solved and some countries don't, and it's
Right.
not like a Newmarket solves it.
Yeah.
Right.
a
It's
much
like
bigger-
Norway's solved
It's
it.
like
Yeah.
a much bigger picture than just in the town here, so. So it was $5,000 for, or just back to Heron Point was.
Oh, it was on the order of $5,000 for. an
I
think that's very
automated-
reasonable.
I think so too.
Counting it? I can't remember.
I
I remember
don't
seeing it a
remember.
while
I-
ago, so I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
It was.
Dale, you sent me something fairly
Yeah,
recently.
I'll-
I'll send that out to the commission.
I think I sent it out at the very beginning, the actual proposal,
Yeah,
so you
Yeah.
can see what's.
Yeah. yeah, I'll send it out to everybody.
Is the next step the town offering a specific solution, or what is the next move, I guess? is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
so I think the next move is speaking with Steve Fournier to try and make proposed solutions. Develop some proposed solutions and then go back to Heron Point Estates Co-op Board of Directors and, propose some solutions and see if we can figure out something that works.
Good.
Like the automated idea.
Yep.
I do
I
too.
think that solves it, just about, but,
No employees.
Yeah, that's the beauty
yeah,
of it.
and the police can get there and you can get out if you need to.
Yep.
Yeah, great idea.
Is it, or does the co-op, I don't know if you know the answer or not, does the co-op own the utility infrastructure within the park?
I'm sorry, does it only,
Utility infrastructure, like the electrical infrastructure, the poles? Sometimes
don't know. I was trying to
Eversource
get
might
that
own the
information.
pole at the street, and then you have to maintain your own poles, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's what
Some
appealed
places.
to me about the solar, I mean, the fact that
Yeah.
it's self-generating.
Yeah.
electricity.
Self-sufficient.
So it kind of
Yeah.
eliminates a lot of that underground wires and permits and stuff like that, so I'll send you the full.
Yeah,
the
because I'd be
full
interested,
look
I'd be
at
interested in
that,
seeing
so-
that, like with the if the battery would, if it's cloudy for 4 days, is it?
Right, I
still-
wonder about what happens.
You need to have an electrical backup.
Yeah, and where can you put it? 'Cause it's kind of in the woods.
Yeah.
But not if it's
So,
out front.
No, it's.
Oh, it's right out front.
Yeah, it's right up on the street.
I guess
I
There are
never even
utilities-
really
there are
noticed
ut-
that.
That's what I'm saying, that you're saying there's electrical utilities under it. I don't know if that's to
Uh.
service a individual
Yeah, and I
home,
don't-
because there's
I have
above
not
ground
heard that
utilities,
issue
right?
about the underground and stuff, because those trucks, again, we're talking about many years, that they're wide open, 24/7, trucks down, DPW down, and I've not heard that surface, so, but again, I know there's, the conflict seems to be for me, from my perspective, the privacy and the sanctuary of the cooperative and the sanctuary of the park.
Mm-hmm.
If I can put it that way.
And the
Trying to
interface. Yeah, right? It's the interface of those two.
Yeah.
Right, and trying to find some balance where,
Mhm.
and the fact that it's got, I guess historically it's called Heroin Point.
Yeah.
Now, that's.
Oh,
what I
is
hear.
really? I didn't
Well,
know
that's
that.
what- I mean, again, it's.
The only thing I know about there is cars down the circle, something happens, and then they speed out of there.
Yeah.
That's what I see when I go down
And I
there
can
sometimes.
understand
Well, I didn't know
talking
that.
exchange of drugs potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of-
Yeah.
Because it is a site.
I go running down there. I did not know that.
And I'm standing there with my kids, and two cars pull up, and then they both leave quick.
Yeah.
What else? I don't know.
That was another.
How do I miss
problem
this?
If we moved the gate back,
Right?
so then you kind of neutralize some of
Mhm.
the stuff you still got to put in place, in the wintertime, but at least it's someplace for people to park,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mhm.
have a chance to.
Yeah, they won't be so much in cover.
Because they're kind of, right now, they're kind of, vehicle traffic is barred from the park, because even if they drive in, there's no place for them to park within that whole
Right, the circle.
construct.
Hmm.
So what were you gonna say, Jim?
I was just asking how wide it is, if you were to slide the gate back to where you're referencing, if there's, like, would it be a drive-in and back all the way out? Would people park each
No,
other, you know what I
if you
mean?
go
Would
to
it
the
be
park.
feasible to move the gate back and then expect that it would, people
You'd
would
be able to turn around to get out of there.
What, I
You'd have
think
to
of
back up.
places that I've gone hiking, and it's not really true parking, but you pull in to the side of the road, and people will park 2 or 3 cars back to
Mhm.
back. I'm trying to
As long
think
as
of
it's-
places nearby that do that.
Right,
So in other words, it's kind of like parking area moves from down over the hill to up top, although there's no real space for that. but just something that gave the public just a little bit better access.
Right, like we had in Bald, Bald Hill Road,
Mhm.
where we didn't have space, there was an open space subdivision, there was not space for head-end parking.
Right.
And so they widened the shoulder basically in specific areas where they had the space. It wasn't gonna impact someone's driveway, where cars were able to pull to the side. So that you're not, if it's just grass or woods or whatever material, or that, I know there's a yard on the left-hand side for part of the way back, at Heron Point specifically, people's tires leaving ruts in the grass, or you know what I mean, or outside, I don't know how wide the easement is or where the driveway is placed, you know what I mean? And to respect all that, I just was curious if it was known that there was space, yeah, you can pull 2 cars in. I haven't been down there in a while. It's been probably a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, it's
So-
something that would probably be worth, I mean, somebody needs to look at that. And I really just took a quick walk and stuff, and I'm thinking, geez, if this gate is moved in X number of feet, I can now get 2 or 3 cars. We're not talking about, I mean, I'm not down there and I don't ever see more than 4 cars in the parking area when I'm there during the day. So we're not talking like a massive parking, it's just someplace so people could get closer to the park and not be in violation of, the privacy of the people there. And, so that was just another thought.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Dale.
If we did that and the gate was closed, and when we get a gate that opens and closes, but we had it moved back, that would encourage people to come after hours because they can outside the gate and walk down much easier, right?
That's true too. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Okay.
So, sorry, I'm
Okay,
not
make it
trying to
quick.
belabor it. I'm not trying to belabor it. So you'll go and talk, or somebody will go and talk to Steve
Yes.
about ideas and.
Yep.
Okay.
Try to keep it moving.
If we have any ideas, should we submit them to you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was getting at. What ideas are you going?
If you have ideas, send them in my direction. Or feel free to join me. I'll try to set something up with Steve and send out notice to the CC members. Okay, jumping backwards now. So Piscassic River Loisel property kiosk.
Okay, so thank you very much
Paid
for
for.
forwarding that invoice.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. If everybody, I know, Drew, that you had sent out the map that Ellen had sent before the last meeting. I don't know if everybody got a chance to look at it or if you're good with it the way it is, but I have volunteered to be the communicator to the vendor. So I'll kind of take the project from this point forward, so that, Ellen, won't be in the middle of it all. So if everybody's good with that, I can let the vendor know we're good with that and to please print the map, and then we can move that forward as well.
Yeah, so the bottom line is Infinite Imaging, who's going to be printing this, has provided us with the proofs that we sent out. They're just waiting for us to say yes.
Oh, the map you sent out last time was approved?
Yes.
Okay.
So I think what I would like to hear is a motion to approve the proof that Infinite Imaging has provided so that we can keep this moving forward. And since I didn't hear one yet, I will make a motion.
And
that-
I'll second that.
Well, let me finish it
Oh.
first.
I could go anywhere with this.
I know.
That we agree to the proof that Infinite Imaging has sent for the Piscassic River Loisel property kiosk sign. And we move the project forward. So would you still like to second it?
Yes, I still would like to second that.
Excellent, thank you. Any further discussion?
Maybe we'll have it in by the spring.
Hearing none, all those,
Your selection is very difficult.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, nice.
excellent. I'll let them know.
Excellent, thank you, Julia.
Thank you.
A lot of work for you.
And then they will bill us directly, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
and
we'll-
it'll be, smaller, obviously.
Yeah, correct. Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
Next item was Shanda Park repair and maintenance. So Julia, I think you had asked
Yeah.
me to put this one on here.
Yeah,
again.
yeah. So, a few meetings back, I had a to-do, an action item of contacting Mike Hoffman, because he was going to contact Underwood engineers about the repairs that needed to be done.
Yep.
And he did contact them, and they had mentioned a less expensive option, which we can't go forward with because of deed restrictions. So our only other option, he indicated, would be to possibly request a proposal for a restoration estimate to Underwood. And I'm sure if it's like the RFP process, then to maybe a couple of others, or I don't know what the general price would be. Maybe if it's low enough, then we don't need the, another 2 vendors. But that's his recommendation.
And just to
Yeah, that would be
clarify,
fine.
this is regarding the retention, the stone walls
And
that
they-
make up the border of the park that juts into the river.
Yes.
And what I recall from our open meeting that we had down there with Mike Hoffman was when we got a basic price, it was gonna be well above our normal price that we
Oh.
could get without a bid. So I would say
We would
yes,
say,
we would
okay.
need bids,
Yeah.
The
because
she's speaking just of it, engineering.
just
The
to get an
the
engineering spec, not even the
build.
cost of it.
Right, the cost was massive.
Yeah,
The engineering would be more than 2,000, I'm sure. Just
The
because
Proposal
schematics
for a
is what you're
restoration
saying.
an
estimate.
engineer would
Yeah.
probably want it surveyed, and then you'd have to do some engineering, there'd be all sorts of permitting. But as far as getting an engineer to go down and look at it and give us a cost for construction, is that what you're?
Restoration?
Yeah, he
That's the
called it a
language.
proposal for a restoration estimate. So is this something we should see 3 vendors because of the cost?
I think you won't know that till you ask the first one, right?
Right.
You need to ask one, and then if it's above 2,000, then you need to ask 2 more, and if it's under, then you're fine.
Well, and my guess
Yeah.
is that asking for a proposal for restoration,
The proposal.
Sounds
might be
expensive.
the proposal, I would guess, would not be expensive.
Right, but the proposal to do a
Big
restoration plan, I guess you might call it, which would be a plan to restore it and not the actual work, like a design.
Yeah.
I don't know if you mean an actual or like a rendering, like we want it to look like this. This would look nice. To make it look like this would cost about.
I thought it was just gonna be like repairs on what is coming down right now. Do we want more than repairs?
When we walked it with Phil McDonald from Underwood Engineers, he pointed out the riprap slopes were also being undermined as well, so there are voids.
Yeah, it's
on-
extensive.
Yeah. Yeah, and then even the retaining wall around where the town float hooks up has some voids.
Mhm.
And then we have the collapsing wall on the side of the, by the culverts. So when the culverts come out, the left side's collapsing and the right side's being undermined. And then as you work around, there's an old boat ramp or something, and then there's the spot where the float attaches, and that wall was undermined as well.
Huh. Sounds like New Orleans. We're battling a rising tide for
That's
For
right.
what?
And runoff from the street.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of
that
stuff.
square of land may be no longer.
So is it documented and like, is it a solid, thing, like what we know needs to happen?
What Phil told us was, if you want to repair these riprap slopes and keep them riprap slopes, it will cost $50 a foot or whatever it was something close to that. And these retaining walls, if you want to keep them, retaining walls, they're approximately $1,000 a foot or something.
Yeah, I was
crazy.
gonna, I thought it was 600, but maybe
Yeah.
it's 1,000.
Yeah, it might have been 600, but it was high. It was a lot per
But-
linear foot of wall.
Right, and there was, you know,
So let's back up though. We don't have to worry about the costs right now.
Right. Well, that's what I was getting at. If you're at a point where you want to RFP for design of restoration.
Right, so let's back up. We had this discussion with Phil McDonald of Underwood, for those who were there. I think what we need to ask for is, let's have that documented, in essence.
Good idea.
Which I think is what the request for, what was the phraseology again? Restoration?
Proposal for restoration estimate.
Yeah, so I think we should pursue that, because that will start to give us something that's documented, that we can work with.
it documents the problems too, the issues
Yes.
that have been.
Yes, documents the issues and gives us a general
So
idea.
was Phil McDonald like documenting this when he was out there with you?
No.
No,
it
we
was
were just
informal.
walking around
okay.
and looking and pointing at stuff and saying,
I
oh,
see.
we got this here, we got this here, we got this
We-
here.
I think one of the things was we were like, roughly how much will this cost? Can we pay for it? And the bottom line I thought was like, not really.
No,
We
probably
needed
not.
town
Right.
help.
No.
And so then when we came back to discuss it, we're like,
Yeah.
we're
What
gonna
do
go.
we do with this?
Do we need to find a funding source before we go through the effort of designing something we could never build? And I thought kind of Roseanne was kind of maybe looking into maybe grants and stuff
Potential
like
grants.
Well, he also mentioned that Fish and Game had no money,
that. Right. Yeah.
or at least not money that they want to put towards this. But LRAC,
They've got money.
Yeah.
Right.
they might have some money to assist us.
I know they have some funds that they're 50,000 that they're looking to appropriate towards some worthy cause.
This is a worthy cause.
Well, there's your
Well, let's
job
not worry
then.
about this.
Yeah.
We have to
So,
do it one step at a time.
so Julia,
I know.
I guess
Yes.
my request would be, if you could get back in touch with Mike Hoffman
Mhm.
and express an interest in, yes, we would like to get a proposal for a restoration estimate from Underwood. Ask Mike if he wants us to communicate directly with Underwood, or if he's willing to continue to be a middleman. That would
Okay.
probably help us, quite honestly.
Okay,
And then we'll see if we can get some documentation that we can then work with.
Is Mike acting in his capacity as a town building code enforcement, or is he just doing it kind of as a volunteer?
I think he
Probably.
noticed it, yeah, in his capacity.
Notice it, but I mean, getting a proposal for us.
Right, I don't know if he.
Yeah,
could
it
do
seems
that.
out of his.
Well, and that's where my question is,
Does he want to?
yeah, is he willing and or able?
okay, and
If he
does this
doesn't want to,
cost-
I know Phil, and I can contact him as well.
Okay. And does this cost money?
I do not think so, but we
Okay.
can clarify that.
Okay. Okay, very good. I'll contact him.
Excellent, thank you.
No problem.
Hey, Julie.
That makes sense, because if we get that, we could take that to town council or something. And say-
Right, now you have something.
Yeah.
And then we know where
I
our
think we'll be at
problems
the
are.
beginning of the
exactly.
process then, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
We'll have identified the problem, and then we can start talking about what the possible solutions are, but I do think it's gonna take involvement from the town.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, next one is the Dearborn property and survey quotes.
I'm going to recuse myself from the discussion for Dearborn property survey quotes.
Okay, thank you.
Should I go sit down? I'll go sit down.
Yeah, sure.
Need to make it formal.
That makes it look official. So, after our last meeting, I had the action item of sending out our request for quotes to 3 different surveyors. We received back quotes from 3 different surveyors. I have distributed those to everyone on the commission, I believe. I hope everyone's had a chance to look at them, read through them. So again, the Dearborn property was given to the town. We're essentially looking for a survey of a portion of the boundary so that we can clearly note where the town-owned property is and where the abutters' properties are along Grant Road. We're also interested in having an easement drawn up for the driveway for 202 Grant Road so that we can clarify legality associated with that. And so we have 3 different proposals. So we have a proposal from Boudreaux Land Surveying, we have a proposal from Doucette Survey, and we have a proposal from Landry Surveying. Does anyone have any questions, comments on the various quotes? Sorry, I'm grabbing a pair of glasses because
It's more
Thoughts on
expensive than I
these, or-
thought it was. I don't know that much about surveying, so I didn't know it was it's more costly than I thought. But that might be the normal amount, I just don't know.
But there was some variation in the quotes.
There were.
Quite, substantial.
Yeah, there's a substantial variation in the quotes. I think they all essentially are pursuing the same thing.
That's what I thought too.
Have we had positive or negative luck with any of the surveyors that were asked?
I think it's safe to say that we've had positive interactions with all of them, and that's why we sent them out to these 3. So I
Okay.
know Boudreaux Surveying did some surveying out at Wigan Farm for us, doing one of the boundary lines there. Doucette Survey has done lots of different projects for the town and for the Conservation Commission and for the Open Space Commission over time. I don't know if the town has used Landry Surveying, but he's a local surveyor in the area, and is capable and willing to do this sort of stuff.
I did see the Doucette one.
Yep.
Again, I saw the other 2, but I didn't see that one.
Absolutely. Yeah, I sent that one out later.
Okay.
Doucette Survey was kind enough to mail it to us here, but I don't get here to get the mail very frequently, so it got distributed a little bit later. I sent something to Bill saying, "Bill, I'm pretty sure you sent me something, but I deleted it from my email by accident." And he said, No, I mailed it." And I said, "Oh, crud. Can you email me a copy, please?" So he was kind enough to do that. So I think the bottom line is the estimate from, or the quote from Boudreaux is $2,786. The quote from Doucette was $6,810. And the quote from Landry Surveying was $4,940.
Wow. What a range.
That's what I said, yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. For all the same job.
Yes.
Nominally, yes. So does anyone have any comments, questions?
Is there, like the higher priced ones maybe indicate a job that can be contested less, I guess, if the abutter wants to dispute? Is there, I don't know. I mean, what are we paying for more?
They looked the same to me. I didn't notice a big discrepancy among.
I think one of the bigger components is, I know that Scott Boudreau is basically a one-man operation.
Uh-huh.
And I think because of that, he's able to keep his
the
costs
costs down.
relatively
Right,
low.
okay.
And I think it's also, Jeff, I hope you can answer this for me. I think Scott also teaches at UNH.
He is the director of the survey program at Hampshire School.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so this is a sort of a side job.
But I didn't
for
know,
him.
maybe some have more sophisticated equipment that has a smaller margin of error or
Maybe
something
more
like that.
precise.
That butters can have less of a foothold for legal suits if they want to contest 2 inches one way or the other, something like that.
Yeah, I don't,
They
I, I suspect there is some truth to that, but
Who knows,
we're not
really?
worried about that.
Okay.
Just, as I said, there are standards set forth by the state of New Hampshire for the accuracy
Oh, okay.
of a land survey, and so they should all have to meet the same standards.
Oh,
of
okay.
accuracy,
All right.
I don't know if this comes into, is there, so we got the added, letter from the state, from Steve, right? About the driveway at 202. Is that add anything, higher stakes onto this survey in terms of, do we have any additional concerns because of that letter that he sent us?
So you're bringing up the fact that the driveway is now a paved driveway?
Yes.
I don't, my perspective is, I don't think it brings up any difference from a surveying perspective. It may change the easement language perhaps. But from I don't think I would slow down surveying for that, I guess is the way to say it.
I just didn't know if that added any other issue that they have to look at or anything like that changed the nature of it, that's all.
I think it adds complexity, but I don't think it changes the survey,
Okay.
I think is the way to say it. Jeff, from a professional perspective, would you agree with that? And if you don't mind, if you can go to the lectern. Just so the camera and the microphone get you.
I'd say I wouldn't offer anything from a land surveyor's perspective, because we should, deed research is done, and grantor and grantee of the previous property owner of, say, the property the town owns would be done. And so any out sales or easements, that's only checking the recorded documents.
Right.
So a surveyor would go through the recorded documents and try to find an easement. If a piece of, if a driveway was across the property they were surveying, one of the standards is that you list record easements, property for producing a plan. And we've asked to have a plan produced in that area. That doesn't mean that we'll find anything. But what I would say about what I understood just from Steve Walker from OEPD at the state, who monitors the property for New Hampshire Fish and Game yearly and gives us reports. When I walked the property with him initially and discussed this, it was a dirt driveway. And he seemed very open to our idea of kind of formalizing the easement in that area. And then now he's come to say it's paved. That doesn't seem to meet all of the restrictions within our easement on this property. Like perhaps it was, I don't know them all. Perhaps there was one that says we allow dirt roads, but no impermeable surfaces perhaps, or something like that within the easement area. And so I personally don't know from his email if that means Fish and Game won't accept it. But we also don't know if there is a recorded right or a verbal agreement between a previous landowner
or two previous landowners, I should say. Perhaps Charlie Dearborn, who's the previous owner of the parcel of town now owns, or a previous owner of 202 Grant Road. So, that being said, I guess what I'm going at with that is that we may find that there is not a recorded easement, but that might not be the final answer as to whether or not the driveway was allowed to be there prior to the state's conservation easement, but the problem was never solved prior to the state's conservation easement, or addressed, I should say. So I'm just throwing that out there, that we may enter into an agreement with the land surveyor to say grant this easement. You know, part of their cost that they've provided us includes drafting an easement plan and an easement document, deed, where the state may never let that happen. So that cost may not ever come up. That doesn't mean we don't need to have the property surveyed because we want the boundaries marked. The easement plan and the deed were, I think one of the proposals breaks that cost out. And then you can kind of see what that surveyor feels that end of the cost is, and you can kind of see that it's not the lion's share of the value of the survey. Mm-hmm. Most of it's in determining boundaries and parking them. So I don't know if that helps.
It does. Thank you.
So none of us are 100% clear on why there's such a variation in the costs. Is that true?
True.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah, I think
True
that's
for
true.
me.
Yeah. I mean, some of it is business costs,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So are we tasked with picking one and
Yes.
voting and making appropriating money and all
And
that?
you said we had good luck with, is it Boudreaux?
Boudreaux, yes.
That was the middle
They're
quote?
least
No.
expensive.
Oh.
We've had good luck with them. It seems like a reasonable
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
If they were, all three of them have agreed to the same work.
Mm-hmm. And there's a
Yeah.
state standard set for
Yeah.
quality of work. Yep,
I see no reason not to accept the lowest bid.
Yeah.
me too.
Me too.
So I will make a motion to accept the lowest bid, which is from Boudreaux Land Survey.
And I'll second that.
Thank you and thank you. Any additional discussion?
Do we need to put a dollar amount with it, or just accept the bid and then we pay?
Sure, let's add a dollar amount to that.
So the dollar amount in this motion would be for
Let's say not to exceed 3,000.
not to exceed $3,000. Who
Do I need to
seconded?
second that?
Did you second
Yes.
that?
Yeah.
Thanks, Ann.
Any further discussion?
I have one.
Yes.
I'm not going to add any, I would say that whichever surveyor is selected, it might be prudent to ask for the proposal returned in a broken down fashion, that if it's a lump sum proposal, that it be broken down and itemized, and that we could initial and proceed with certain portions of it, should they be needed.
Yeah.
It's because if we don't need an easement plan, because the state won't go that route,
Yep.
then it's
Shouldn't
not
pay
worth
for it.
paying for it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it might be something to ask for.
Sure. Sure. That's fair. Okay, thank you, Jeff.
We need to add that language in, or?
So we're going to amend the motion
Yet again.
so that the proposal would be to,
So let's amend it to ask the surveyor to provide some flexibility in the, whether or not the plan is developed based on communication with the state. Try and keep it short.
okay?
Are you good
Does she
with
need to
that?
re-second it?
Do we need to restate it again?
Okay, I didn't know he was, okay, yes.
Okay.
It sounds good to me.
All right.
You second it.
So then, All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Refusals? So I will communicate with all of the folks who submitted requests for quotes to say thank you for the quotes and explain our decision. Thank you.
Thank
One
you.
and all. Okay. Next one is Silverman Schneer easement. So I think we talked a little bit about this at our last meeting, that the new owner of the property is building a new home out there. They had cut some trees outside the easement exclusion area. They had a rope and string drawn to demark the line where the exclusion area, is. Construction on the new home is proceeding. There was at least footers for the foundation the last time I was out there. Jeff, you sent out the easement language, I believe, to everyone on the commission. Is that correct?
Sent the deed out, yes.
Yeah, it sent the deed out. From my reading of the deed, I would say that the cutting of the trees outside the exclusion area, if we wanted to call it timbering, is outside of the deed language, because we're supposed to be informed ahead of time that timber cuts would be taking place. So I guess the bottom line is I think it's reasonable to say that the cutting outside the exclusion area is in violation of the deed. So with that in mind, I think the appropriate response is to write a letter to the new owner and say, hey, here's the deed. We think this cutting is outside the deed language. We request that the area outside the exclusion area be undisturbed as the construction continues and be permitted to grow back to a natural state. And, state in there that, our assumption is that, this was an honest mistake. I don't know the correct words exactly to say that, but that's the underlying assumption. And offer to, come out and meet and talk with them, do whatever. Does that seem agreeable, and does that seem like the right approach?
Yes, to me it does.
Can we request a meeting with them on the site to just review the limits
Sure.
of the exclusion area?
Sure.
So then we're all on the same page and there's no
Yep.
misunderstandings.
Yeah. Does that shorten the letter?
I
Do-
don't, I
no,
don't,
no,
no, no,
seriously.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, does it essentially say, we request a meeting? Here's the easement, we're requesting a meeting.
I think I would still put in the language that you discussed, just so that you have that in writing, that we're acknowledging the fact that
Yep.
a cut without, in the manner they did it, would violate the easement.
Okay, sure.
Just instead
And it
of,
wasn't
we'll meet,
just a
you know what I
little
mean,
bit
if we meet.
over, I mean, it was a ways.
Yeah, yeah.
Huh. It's too bad.
Can we have the
That's
timber?
I know, there seems like there should be
I
some,
know. Should they donate
some
the
things
timber
we
to
should,
needy
some
people?
recourse for
I don't know.
violating this. I mean, they bought the property, they're aware of the boundaries.
We've gone down this road so many times where we've.
Yeah, and
not-
just been over, okay, that happened, it happened, it happened, you're filling the swamp, okay. Now you're putting a dock out here, okay, you're cutting trees.
What did we do for the
I mean,
last-
what's happening?
The last violation that we had were the two,
We put boulders.
The one up by on Dame Road. All Boulder.
oh.
Boulder
you know.
Heights subdivision.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So what did
That
they
was
need to
very
do?
minor. It
Did
was
they-
really essentially, it was one tree that might have been a wildlife tree. It was like half dead, right? Maybe worse. The stump was rottenish. And the other one was a pretty sizable tree that they insisted was a hazard tree because it would have overhung some new houses. And after you walked on site, right,
Yeah.
with Mike Hoffman.
Yeah, and he told us what he felt that their reasoning probably was. Like, did
Hazard
we drop it there, or did they have to do anything afterwards?
So what happened, we didn't go back and re-inspect, but there were some skidder marks in the area, and we had asked that they were hand raked out and smoothed back to a more natural, to match the terrain around it. It wasn't a lot really. It was an area smaller than, like, if you drew a circle right in here, and it was like this half moon maybe. And that where that tree was would most likely benefit. It would most likely be best served if it was let to naturally revegetate, because it was only like one missing tree in the forest on the edge, and that if we were to try to force them to plant a tree.
Yeah, but did we,
getting
like,
some
I
brand new
think that,
tree
didn't
there
we
would have been
briefly
almost
talk about, well, maybe they should do something else, like plant a tree in another area that Newmarket wanted a
Right,
tree.
reconcile a little bit.
Like,
Or I think one of the things was that we would have did we request to do a site walk with homeowners association when it
Yes.
was formed, so that we can kind of basically like, here homeowners association, here's kind of the boundaries of an open space that your property is surrounded by, and some open space buffer areas.
yeah.
Which I have no idea at what stage that subdivision currently is.
I was just thinking in terms of consistency,
Yeah.
you know?
Right.
Yeah, so that I believe those were the requests.
Okay.
Rake that area out by hand, so you don't have a machine back in there working. And pretty sure we requested that we
Yes.
have a meeting with the homeowners association when it is formed, so that we can walk.
You have a better memory than I do.
And
Thank
at
you.
this point, there is no homeowners association.
Okay. Yeah, I have
There's a
no-
road and there's lots, but there's nothing,
Still no
nothing
building.
beyond that, yeah.
It was from May.
Yep.
and,
See how good that is, Julie. Sue will test it.
I can tell you exactly.
So just give us the quick one, Sue, I'm running out of pages.
I know, really, I know. It was 2 trees removed, one 10-inch hardwood, the other 20-inch white pine. Expressed great disappointment in the developer.
Yeah.
We can go there and
We
express
discussed
disappointment.
lines and better methods of flagging the buffer. Code enforcement officers are asking for input from the Conservation Commission. The Conservation Commission will plan a site walk, so.
Yeah, we did the site walk.
That was
And
done.
then that goes into June, we already talked about site walk.
Yeah, in June, we probably reported what our findings were and our problems, in our thoughts. I mean,
I think I'd be satisfied if the letter just had a little bit stronger language. Cut it out. Don't do it again. We're watching
Absolutely.
you. That's it.
I think
You're
that's
in
what you suggested.
violation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm, yeah.
Yeah.
You're in violation.
Yeah.
We want to come out there and
So
walk
I'll-
it with you and make
Yeah.
sure.
So here's my request. I will draft a letter, because I think I have something already that's close enough that we can work from. My request is, can somebody else find out who the new owner is?
Yeah, I can find out who the owner is.
If you can get me that would be most helpful.
We can just call assessing.
And you're right about the recommendation of planting a tree somewhere else.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought I heard that.
There was
Because
a
what if
thought-
it fills in with autumn olive and then we got another mess down there?
Well, not that it, I mean, I'm telling, it's,
It's a little tiny
And
spot.
Oh.
once
It's
the
like
HOA
this
was
big.
created, we were supposed to request an inspection and sidewalk.
I think the tree elsewhere was within the subdivision by the road, perhaps, is what we.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another area that would be of benefit.
Right.
I love it down there.
In this case, it's
upset
more
about that.
important because if he is under the illusion that he can continuously keep this area clear, then it would
Yes.
obviously
Very
complicate it.
organized.
But you're right. What
It
will
needs to
happen in this
repopulate.
area is possibly he will have plants
Very
that he
organized.
likes even less growing back there.
Right.
I could-
That's what I'm trying to avoid.
Yep.
Probably he did make an honest mistake, but now he needs to know.
Mhm. And given where it is, I don't think there's a whole lot of invasives in that.
Right.
immediate
I don't
area.
think so either.
If it is, it's probably burning bush.
Mm-hmm.
So I think think it'll be okay there. Okay, so I'll try and draft a letter, and I'll send it out to the commission members for input prior to mailing it off to the property owner. I have to tell you, though, this is from a priority perspective, this shifts perfectly to the next item of easement monitoring, that I need to get the Silverman Schneer easement monitoring report and the New Routes easement monitoring reports completed before I'm gonna write this letter. Just, it's the way it is.
Fair enough.
If you need help, let me know. If you
Okay.
don't, the Silverman Schneer, if you want to send me the letter you have,
Okay,
I don't mind trying to doctor it up and send it around once I find out who the owner is.
okay, all right, thanks, Jeff. So that is a segue into easement monitoring. So Piscassic River Loisel is done, and Jeff, you sent that one off to DES.
Yes.
I
Yep,
know
it's
you
been
copied
submitted.
that one, yep.
Heather.
So Silverman Schneer and New Roots Farm have both been done. So Casey, you and I went out and did the New Roots Farm property. Again, no real changes there. Everything looked good. You know, we walked the kind of the usual walk out there, if you will. I guess one thing that was a little different this year is they have a pretty substantial number of chickens in movable pens. So I think that was a change from last year. But other than that, you know, everything looked pretty good, which was nice. So then the other one was the Audubon Smith Sisters, which we had scheduled, and then due to scheduling conflicts didn't happen. So if possible, I'd like to get that one rescheduled.
I apologize for that.
No, that's no problem.
My daughter's birthday party came up. I couldn't miss it.
Completely unknown.
I'm gonna go. Like,
What?
no, it was like on the fence.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right.
She won.
So what are people's schedules like?
The weekend right before Christmas is good for me. 23rd, 24th. I don't know if that's too close for festivities for people, but
I won't be here on that weekend. I could possibly go on this Sunday.
Okay. Anyone else? Availability and/or interest?
I have too much this Sunday. My wife works Saturday. Next weekend, I don't know when I'm going to Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Sometime after the 22nd. If I don't leave until like the 25th, I can. Actually, I don't think that's possible. I think I'm probably leaving the 23rd.
That's not reality. Yeah.
Does it have to be done this year?
Yes.
Oh.
Or yes. Let's say yes. I think that's the right answer.
Report has to be submitted like by the end of January, right? Or
Yeah, I think so.
but the monitoring date's supposed to be
It's supposed to be in this
calendar
year.
year.
Yeah.
Well, do you have a previous report you can send me to look at? I mean, I would do it on my
Yep.
own if that's what you need.
So let's. I think I can do the 17th also. That's this coming Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So Patrick, if you're willing, why
Yeah.
don't we shoot for that?
Okay.
What time?
I'm an early riser. You name your poison. I'll show up then.
Okay.
that sounds like a challenge.
I advise not in the dark. I've got a headlamp, but
I was gonna say,
that might add
I have my headlamp over there.
additional challenge.
How about 8?
8 o'clock.
That work?
8 o'clock Sunday, December 17th.
Yeah.
What is the address that we're?
I don't know.
The address.
You park at the Audubon Follets Brook parking area?
Do they plow that?
I don't know.
That was one thing I was
Probably not.
thinking about this Sunday. Like Sunday morning, and I was like, it snowed. And I don't know if I could even park there if I want.
There's like a little electrical house or something across the street. I parked there one time.
Yeah, I've done that too. But parking on 152 is
Yeah.
a little sketchy.
Yeah.
Not my favorite.
Yeah, it's a little less parking now after snow too.
I have one small new business item. Can I start saying that now?
Sure, but let's hold it
Okay.
a little bit because I still have.
Okay.
one here.
Sorry.
And so, Patrick, I think this one takes about 3 hours.
Okay, good to know.
And wear boots. Boots that can get wet.
The boots that keep you dry.
Yeah, boots that keep you dry. Right?
Q and what's my crossroad? Like, is it past?
It's before Lee Hook Road.
Okay, before Lee Hook Road.
Yeah.
But after for Pecastic Loisel, it's after
Yeah,
that.
it's after that. Yeah.
After, so is there a sign or anything that I'll see?
Yeah, there's a Audubon Folletsbrook Sanctuary sign.
Oh,
on the
okay,
road.
that next to the Quocks.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, I
That's
know.
where we'll park.
Okay, yeah, all
And then
right.
we'll walk up the road a little bit from there.
Okay.
Okay. So still on easement monitoring, we got a letter and easement monitoring report from the Southeast Land Trust for the Hilton easement, which is out on Grant Road, essentially kind of opposite. Well, it's a little bit before the Wigan Farm, but on the left-hand side of the road as you're heading out of town. The letter says, please find enclosed a copy of the 2017 monitoring report for the town's Hilton Conservation easement, which the Land Trust completed as agent for the town. During the visit, I found the property to be in a similar condition as has been described in previous reports from prior visits. Blah, 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 blah. So
there's
no,
nothing.
yeah, no real change there. We do have a bill from Southeast Land Trust for $230.55. So I will make a motion that we submit a check request for $230.55 to the Southeast Land Trust for their invoice, or for their easement monitoring of the Hilton Conservation easement, and their invoice number 2017-49.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Can I pass this?
Can
in
you
your
just
direction?
sign it for me, please?
Yes,
Thank
gladly. I'll say approved.
you. Okay.
So the other thing on this one, Andrea,
Mhm.
is this should come out of the town budget.
Alrighty.
So there's a line item that is, I forget what it's.
Contracted services?
Yeah, contracted services.
Okay.
Do you want me to, yeah, you see it on there.
I don't have my thing open.
702.
Can I use
Toss
your
it
pen
down.
for one quick sec, Jeff?
Just toss it, unless
Oh,
you.
thank
I just circled it.
Oh, alrighty.
Handed it to her.
You don't want this page anymore?
Yeah, you can take that page.
Alright, let me just write this on here.
Okay, so that takes care of that one. Then the last one is the alteration of terrain permit. So that was, I think I emailed this information out to everyone. So there was a letter that was from, probably gonna butcher their name, Teague and Bond. Ty and Bond. So they are the engineering group that's working with the school at the SAU related to construction stuff around the elementary school for the renovations there. So the Lamprey River Advisory Committee sent a letter to Ty and Bond, excuse me, and then this letter was from Ty and Bond to the Lamprey River Advisory Committee in response, and essentially lists the comments from the letter and then the associated responses. When I read through this, it seemed that they had addressed things. Did anyone see anything that they noticed that was not addressed? And again, this was a case of we were copied, we were just CC'd on it. There's no requirement for us to have an action out of it. Yeah.
But is that's gonna concern the whole runoff, what we were gonna do? Do we have to change up the plans for new road and all that? Because of the runoff from this project?
Because of Moonlight Brook? I would say no. I mean, they're saying, right, that they're going to engage a stormwater group to look at some of that. Essentially the elementary school's in close proximity to Moonlight Brook, so any more impervious surface that's created by the expansion of the school is going to provide more stormwater runoff essentially into Moonlight Brook. And yeah, they'll try and find ways to mitigate it. It is interesting that, depending on how it's done, you can route some of that water to the Piscassic, because just off the parking lot at the elementary school there's a drainage which runs towards the intersection of Grant Road and 152, and then drains under 152 and flows to the Piscassic. So depending on how they route
It looks like in the
stormwater
map, it
runoff.
looks like some of it will go that direction and some of it will go
Yeah,
towards Moonlight Brook.
correct.
I don't think they either are great options.
I don't think so.
I know, I don't like that at all.
Yeah,
This is
I know.
something we should-
I'm not trying to
Yeah.
cause a stir. I'm just saying, neither one of them is a perfect option, obviously, because they're either putting water above the dam or below the
Yeah.
dam.
Yep.
Below the dam, somewhere that floods, or above the dam, and somewhere that floods. Which is the least impact.
So, anyone have any additional comments or discussion around this?
Is this something maybe we could discuss at a future meeting?
Sure, I mean, we can discuss it now. If we're going to discuss it, let's discuss it now.
I don't know if there's a lot to discuss,
But-
but, I mean, it does raise some questions, that's all, some concerns, I think, as to the water and the floodplain and all that.
Okay, do you have a
Specifically because we've
proposed
had the
action?
plans drawn up and everything, to take care of the new road, to do all that, and now I'm thinking this may cause that to have to be changed some.
Why do you think
It
that?
just seems that it's going to increase the water flow, or change the Moonlight Brook somehow.
Well, I would say this has the potential and probability of increasing some flow into Moonlight Brook. One of the major ideas of the whole new road project, right, is to divert water before it gets to the ability to join Moonlight Brook.
Okay.
So it's
So we're diverting
Once-
some water from joining and we're adding other water to it.
yep.
Okay. Seems contradictory.
It is, but
Yeah,
it's-
it is what it is.
it's the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
If, yeah. if there's more impervious surface, there's more runoff. And given where we are, there's a very finite number of places that runoff can go. Or can be mitigated too, or however you want to say that. And I think that'll be the biggest thing, that, can you use some of the space to try and have a rain garden, or, to try and do something to help mitigate it.
Certainly in that parking lot, it would be to their benefit if they took that into account and either looked at rain gardens, or there's also some surfacing that they can use that allows some permeation, because they already have that issue there. So everybody knows, who's ever dropped kids off at the elementary school, that the end of the drive going out floods.
Yeah.
Sure does.
And that the far corner of the parking lot closest to Main Street also has water in it at some times of the year. I don't know. I think it would make sense for them to address that. I just don't know if they are, by reading through that or not.
I don't understand one thing about it, is that it says that the project had a response from Ty and Bond's question. So the question of it's a significant source of urban flooding and large storms. What's going to happen here, more or less? The project has been designed to meet the requirements of NHDES with regards to reduction in stormwater volume through infiltration and peak runoff rates through detention. So it rains, some of it's going to infiltrate, and some's going to run off, but we're going to capture it so it's not this big flood coming down all at once, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they go on to say, it should also be noted that because NHDES has recently started requiring projects along the seacoast to increase the rain data used for modeling by 15%, as required, this project's stormwater management system has been designed to reduce peak flows in larger storms than they would have been required to in the past. So
they're just following the new regs? Is that all they're saying there?
what I can't tell is when they say designed to meet the requirements of NHDS regards to reduction in stormwater volume through infiltration and peak runoff rates, is if the project is causing a net reduction in impact off the site, or if, you know what I mean? Like, currently the site today has very poor water infiltration and water retention. There's no retention or infiltration, right? So after this project, even though it may increase the impervious area,
Is it
the
gonna
actual
improve it?
flow will be
Yeah.
less off-site during a peak storm. That's what I don't understand after reading it. And
Well,
it-
okay.
and
Like
it
they're
may be
putting a catch
possible-
basin in
may
or
be
something.
possible.
And I don't know, but I mean, that's a,
They are putting in 2 ponds, right?
Right. So if that was answered, you might say, oh, wow, it's actually going to be better than it was, and it may not impact, but I don't understand. I don't know.
I had read that too, and it didn't make sense to me.
So,
Right.
so there's a pond over towards Durrell, and there's a pond on one of the newly acquired properties. And then it looks like this pond has a drain that helps flow back this way and has an outflow there. That's how I'm interpreting that, at least.
Hmm.
1 pond, 2 ponds.
Well, this is the
Drain.
existing wetland right here, right? This pond.
Yep.
That's.
Well, it's next. This is really the existing wetland is right along Durrell.
Yeah.
So this is that little grass area next to the road that currently goes around behind the
Mhm.
school.
Post pond. So this is post pond. What? No, I don't get that. Because the elevation over here is 58. And the elevations in this one over here are 53 and 54. So I don't know what this is doing.
the engine.
You know what I mean? See that 58 and then a 56. and
Right.
54.
So is that why this
So this-
goes under?
That might be what.
Yeah,
There's an
they try
arrow
to show it.
here. There's an arrow flowing here, an arrow flowing here. It doesn't. Something here, and then maybe it goes out this way.
I'm not sure.
don't know what that is. I mean, I personally don't think that I have enough information to offer a educated
Yeah,
opinion.
I agree.
One
I
way or
don't-
the other.
Right.
I don't think I know enough how looking at those to know. But it does sound like they're planning to meet the regulations that are set forth by DES, so
Just sort types.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
what can
Yeah.
you do?
yeah.
The first thing I learned in environmental science, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So you want to do something, you got to give up something.
True.
I mean, it is the town, and just because they're meeting a requirement doesn't mean you can't
Right.
request
Right,
something
no, I
else,
know.
like a rain garden or
Yeah.
something else like that, or whatever
Mhm.
they're up to, but they're trying to do some infiltration, like you said, Drew. I think that looks like you're saying that's what that net thing.
Well, I don't think, I
does.
think these two ponds are the infiltration areas. Retention and infiltration.
Like this area right here, see that?
Yeah.
I think that's infiltration basin.
Oh, you think so? Well, then I guess this would be too. Maybe this is feeding into that.
Because you've got 3 catch basins probably, and no out. You see how this is closed system, and this is a closed system, and they go into this thing.
Yeah.
And then I think this is infiltration, and maybe this is overflow for infiltration, and out this way. Not. That's what I'm saying. It's like I can guess all night.
Right, I don't know
as
how to
what that
read.
stuff is, but I don't know. No, really. I don't know the
It's
process
okay,
for
I was
stuff
just
like
wondering.
that.
I just didn't know.
For things like this that are SAU, they have, I've never been involved in or gone to meetings about school-related items like that. So is it like the town, like they have to have a meeting where they kind of Ty and Bond presents to the SAU, hey, here's our plan, and it's public and we see it, and it's broadcast, and they get the school board asks questions and says, hey, what is that thing there, like kind of we're asking?
I
Yeah,
think
can we
they still have
request-
a building committee that is subcommittee of the school committee that's dealing with a lot of these issues. And then I think if they have something important, they then bring that to the school committee. But I don't think they get necessarily the school committees getting down too granular, on a decision by decision basis. That's why they have that subcommittee to kind of go through those kind of particulars with them.
Okay.
That's my understanding in going to a few meetings, that's how they're kind of doing things. Because there's going to be so many things like this that they're going to be dealing with that they can't go through each one.
I just didn't know if there was, so if that's the way they do it, is there a point of public input to the
With it,
design?
there is, if we
Sure
go to
there
the
is.
facilities,
Mhm.
there, you can get information, they have meetings as well. They're still having regular public meetings, just as a committee. And I think if we had further questions, we could go to that.
All the building meetings.
Yep. Yep.
And so then that is where, so we were CC'd on this letter because LRAC sent it, right?
Yes.
Or LRAC sent this to us, the response letter to us.
Yes.
And so we wouldn't really probably see anything on our end if they hadn't done this until they actually went for a permit from the state to alteration of terrain or wetlands or something like that, if they were to do that.
Yes. I think that's correct.
So technically, if we wanted an input, who would we send it to? We would send it to the SAU. I guess that's what I'm asking. So if
Yeah,
we're like,
I-
geez, we
I
don't
think
really,
that's
we think you're
correct,
killing
yes.
Moonlight Brook here, we want to say something to you.
Right, who are we talking to?
Yeah, like if we evaluate this and we're like, geez, we want more information, are they gonna wanna give it to us? Are they gonna wanna involve us in the process? And do we have a voice as a commission or as just individual citizens? You know what I mean, I guess?
Yeah, I would say both. I would say, I think
Yeah.
I think individuals certainly have a voice, and I
Right.
think as a commission, we can have a voice.
Okay, that's what I was kinda,
Yeah.
which would be to,
Do we need to write another letter and request more information, since Moonlight Brook is somewhat of a sensitive habitat and concerning, and as well as Piscassic River, and where, I don't know, you're diverting a lot of water, so can they be more specific in certain areas or something?
or could we have maybe if they have I don't know, like if they have a meeting where folks from Ty and Bond are gonna be there, can we get an invitation?
Yeah.
I'd be willing to follow up with the facilities committee and say, here's what we got, we have some additional questions. What would be the venue to follow up with you about that? Would they be willing to come here and talk to us about it, or would it be more appropriate if we had some people go to their meeting and ask their questions there? I'd be happy to do that.
Is another question I have, is planning already doing that? Because I know planning is kind of, they did the study on the Moonlight Brook, the planning department had the study on Moonlight Brook flow done, right? I think they presented to town council maybe. And so I don't know if planning is involved in the school design at all, the planning department, or if they have say already, or I'm not sure
Don't
how it
know.
works.
Yeah.
Because they might get in there and say, geez.
So how about this?
Yeah, hold
So
on.
how about if people review this information? Thank you for volunteering, Patrick.
Mhm.
How about if people send any comments or concerns they have to Patrick? Patrick can sort of consolidate those. And then ask the facilities committee how we can reach out and communicate with them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's a good idea.
Gives us an opportunity to look in a more relaxed atmosphere.
Right, think at home.
Building committee?
Yes. Facilities committee, I think, is the phraseology.
It might be building committee or
Still
facility.
building.
I'll look and let I'll send an email out to the group just letting you guys know who the appropriate subcommittee is.
We don't get those.
Apparently not.
Oh, we did. Especially if it's within the 250 feet of a designated river.
Well, I think that's where, right, I think that's where this comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious that LRAC saw it and we didn't.
'Cause
Well, they
Oh,
may
that's
have been,
why,
LRAC
because it's within a
says-
quarter.
they may have been
Yeah.
noticed on it because of its
Uh-huh.
proximity to a tributary of the.
That's why we didn't see it, because it's not within a, they're not impacting any, well, it's a town, I guess. If they're within a quarter mile of a designated river, we don't necessarily see it, but LRAC does.
Right.
If they're in like the shoreline, like 250,
Mhm.
we would see it, because there'd be a shoreline application. Yeah, and they must have just given it to us because they think we have an interest.
Well, I think because we were copied on LRAC's letter, but. I
Yeah,
don't-
that's what I mean.
Right.
Because LRAC
Yes.
Courtesy.
we would have.
Although
an
I don't,
interest.
I don't know that we actually were.
I don't know either. That's what
I don't
I'm saying.
have
How
any
do we
knowledge
get into
of
this
it.
process?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. We're only hearing about it through some strange channel. What
There's a
is our
couple of
venue
instances
for
where
that?
that's happened.
Yes.
And you wanted to look at things, and we only got this by happenstance. We should have really been looking at it, but.
Okay. So Andrea, you said you had
Oh,
another.
yeah, it's quick.
business.
So I found a letter about the $1,000 fund offered to field trips, environmental, for high school, elementary, junior high students. So I forwarded that, changed the date, and that's about it. And changed the principals' names and forwarded that to both the elementary school and high school principal, as well as the superintendent, and I received a response from the superintendent. She has a few teachers in mind who may be able to utilize that fund.
Oh, good.
So I
Great.
think the last time, the letter was dated 2012, so perhaps it hasn't been used since then, at least.
Mm.
So, that's it.
And I can speak to that since my wife is a teacher. She said that she saw communication going out to the teachers saying that the Conservation Commission had made this available. If teachers were interested, they were supposed to reach out to the chair of the Conservation Commission.
Excellent, good.
So, yes.
Okay.
so
Nice.
They got it.
Word's been spread.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect.
Yes, thank
Yep.
you, Andrea.
You're welcome. Do we have to monitor Bald Hill?
No.
Okay. There's no trail there. I looked for the trail and I don't know. I couldn't find the trailhead.
They put a kiosk there, maybe not.
Yeah.
There's
and-
no key. I tromped around in the woods and some neighbors were looking at me and I didn't have
At the-
appropriate footwear and so I just, whatever, I gotta get out of here.
So at the end of Hayden?
There's the circle and I sort of parked at the end of the cul-de-sac because I drove up there to look for the trailhead and I didn't see the trailhead and then so what the heck? Instead of parking down in the designated parking area, I just figured, well, I'll tromp around. Maybe it's unnoticeable. But I didn't see any visible trailhead within my 15 minutes of sort of tromping that edge and the neighbors looking at me oddly. So I left.
Well, that's interesting. Because I thought I thought at one point they kind of had like a gate and a kiosk. A small gate, but I thought they
I
had
didn't see
something.
anything like that.
Okay.
Maybe I was in the.
Picture of that? I thought they put a picture of that somewhere. I thought I remember seeing a photograph of that.
We have diagrams of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll go back and look more thoroughly, 'cause now I'm curious. Maybe I missed it, but it's really small. The cul-de-sac's here, I parked here, walked here.
There's no leaves on the trees either.
Yeah, it was
Obviously
fall.
Most of the wood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked for an obvious trail, because I remember
Well,
one
not
guy
the
that was,
obvious.
Yeah, that's
Oh.
possible. Because that was a few years ago and
Oh.
nobody uses it.
I remember someone saying that it was like a road, though. It was like an access road, so,
There was one out there, I believe,
Yeah.
a long time ago.
But I think they also, because they put in that loop,
yeah.
I think they reduced the surface there, which probably changed the slope of
Yeah.
what was going into it, so it could,
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm curious.
could be pretty different. Okay, great, thank you.
That's it.
Anyone else have anything else under old or new business? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Julia. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you one and all. Oh, I keep forgetting to do this.
Thank you.